The article from New York Times, Starved for Energy, Pakistan Braces for a Water Crisis, addresses the present water shortage in Pakistan. Worldwide climate change, Pakistan's inadequate water storage facilities, local waste mismanagement, and the national habit of extravagance are depleting the water storage quickly. Pakistan denizens, especially politicians, are said to be mostly responsible for this crisis. To understand Pakistan's climate change, knowing the water cycle and how human impact alters it is important. First, let me introduce the biogeochemical cycles and the environmental spheres. These are the environmental spheres. And this is also a system because there's an input, there are storages, and there's an output. The important thing is that energy and matter flows differently in this system. Energy is finite and it flows through and goes out as heat. However, matter is finite and it's all this stuff inside here, and it's all the stuff atoms and it stays inside. It's recycled all over again because of the law of conservation of matter. The atmosphere is consisted of nitrogen, oxygen, argon, and carbon dioxide. Hydrosphere is consisted of H2O, which is water. However, H2O also exists in the atmosphere and ecosphere and the lithosphere, so it's kind of ambiguous. But let's leave it this way. The ecosphere is consisted of animals, plants, bacteria, and fungus. The lithosphere is consisted of many different minerals such as iron and chlorine, sodium, calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium, and lots more. There's a flow, right? The spheres are all connected to each other. This is the water cycle, otherwise known as the hydrologic cycle. How it works. First, the sun radiates heat, and the surface water gets hot and it evaporates. So, in other words, it turns into gas. The gas condensates up in the air, and when it gets heavy enough, it precipitates, either in rain or snow or something else. Then this water infiltrates to the ground and it percolates into the groundwater. This groundwater is used by plants or humans, and if it is used by plants, transpiration occurs, and transpiration is evaporation from leaves, so it goes up and condensates and precipitates and filtrates, and this happens all over again. Or the sun radiates heat and the snow caps or glaciers melt, and eventually the snow becomes water and it flows to the surface water. So this also happens again and again. This is the water cycle. This is the natural carbon cycle. When the sun radiates, there should be a sun here. When the sun radiates, the land plants are able to photosynthesize if they have water and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So the atmosphere gives carbon dioxide to the land plants. And the land plants, they produce sugar, which is C6H12O6. You can see carbon right here. And so if there's any leftover carbon dioxide, the land plants do a thing called respiration, and the CO2 goes back into the atmosphere. And sometimes when the land plants die, well, not sometimes, but every time they die, they are decomposed here by bacteria and fungi, and eventually when they break down, they give out carbon dioxide. So this goes back to the atmosphere, from the soil to the atmosphere. And the atmosphere and the soil are the major storages of carbon. Two major, actually. They are two major storages of carbon. And the other one is the deep ocean, which we will discuss later on. And the atmosphere has CO2, right? So the atmosphere diffuses with the surface ocean. The surface ocean absorbs CO2, and it eventually turns into CaCO3. And also, the sun contributes to the carbon cycle by making currents for the ocean by radiating heat. Water circulates, right? So the surface ocean circulates down to the deep ocean. This is the third major storage of carbon, and in the deep ocean, carbon takes a form of detritus or oil or natural gas. It stays for hundreds of years as CO2. And this carbon dioxide goes up, becomes CaCO3, and you can see marine life here, right? We're talking about the marine life that has shells, and shells are actually made of CaCO3. When marine life dies, they decompose, and the carbon goes to the surface ocean or the deep ocean. But wherever they go, it doesn't matter because it circulates. Now let's look at some of the reasons of the water shortage of Pakistan. First, worldwide climate change is said to have a big effect. One of the reasons of global temperature rise is the increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. When fossil fuels are burned, the carbon dioxide collects heat in the atmosphere. Let's pretend that there is a factory here. So the factory emits carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide clogs up the atmosphere. And this is heat. Okay, this is heat. And the heat is actually unable to go out immediately because of the carbon dioxide that blocks the heat from going outside. Eventually it will go outside, but it will go outer space, but it'll take a while. The average temperature of Earth increases due to the heat collection in the atmosphere. When the average temperature goes up, glaciers and snowcaps melt, increasing sea levels due to the increased runoffs, but reducing drinkable or agricultural water globally. Here we can easily see a connection between the water cycle and the carbon cycle. If fossil fuel usage escalates, if it escalates, runoffs increase, and in the end, this snow runs out. In addition, when the temperature increases, the atmosphere storage holds more water, and evaporation and condensation speeds up, increasing the refilling speed. Even when left alone, the atmosphere and surface water storages still refill quite fast. As mentioned in the article, the intensity of rainfalls has increased, but the duration between them became longer. This could impact the water usage of many living organisms. In other words, it might slow down the refilling rate of them. Second, inadequate water storages decrease water availability. Human intake increased over time in Pakistan, but the storage is limited, resulting in depravity. If Pakistan does not construct enough wells, the precipitation that infiltrates and percolates into the ground wouldn't be usable. Eventually, this groundwater becomes surface water in a relatively slow rate. However, if the existing surface water is polluted, it's no use. This connects with the third reason, local waste mismanagement. If surface water is polluted, it cannot be used by humans until it becomes precipitation again. The problem is when not only the area where surface water lies is polluted, but locally areas overflow with waste. The fast refilling speed does not help the situation in this case. This indicates that whether or not it rains, clean, drinkable surface water will not be available for Pakistanis. This is very significant. Pakistan, a densely populated country, has less water for everyone to begin with. With all the problems and lackings of fuel and electricity, the lack of water can really make the lives of Pakistanis miserable. Because solar energy is the only infinite resource we have, water depravity needs to be addressed immediately. In the closed system of Earth, water is finite. Hence, we need to seek effective solutions. One step I suggest is reducing the use of fossil fuels. Pakistan is suffering from the overall lack of resources such as fuel, electricity, and oil. And from the reckless depletion of the past, the carbon dioxide levels and temperature increased significantly. Whoop. Then what about undoing it? If Pakistan starts the trend of entirely replacing fossil fuels with renewable energy, the carbon levels will start to decrease. Pakistani citizens will have access to more energy, and eventually runoffs will decrease. Even though this is a long term goal and has to be implemented step by step, it's arguably the most effective way to save us from future environmental catastrophes, not to mention the water crisis. The second step is to construct more wells and dams. In the article, it is stated that only 9% of the water supply is stored in reservoirs, and the last dam was built 46 years ago. If water is stored in reservoirs, the water available for human usage will increase. The only consequence is that building dams might destroy or interrupt natural environments and cycles, and too many wells will deplete the underground storage afterwards. However, I believe that the current priority is saving Pakistanis from water starvation, and we can achieve balance with dams or wells while constructing them. Dams will work as hydroelectric energy as well as supplying water for Pakistan. Wells can help Pakistanis use groundwater, especially in rural areas. Balancing is the task. The Pakistani government has to carefully arrange the construction so that the input and the output of the groundwater supply is equal to avoid future water crises. We have to understand that this is not only Pakistan's problem. Many countries in the world are water stressed, such as Singapore, UAE, Israel, and Korea. There needs to be a global effort to reduce carbon dioxide emission levels and balance the usage of groundwater. Last but not least, individuals need to moderate their usage of resources to cure this water crisis. Remember, people make a group, groups make a nation, and nations make the world.